Tuning in, and today we're going to be talking about creative. And we don't get a chance to do this very often, so I'm so excited to be sitting here with Karen Howe, president of the township, and also Cannes advisory board member, and basically the decoder of Cannes, the queen of Cannes, we like to call her. Hey, Karen.
I want a crown.
I'll get you one. I will get you one. So today, what we want to talk about is, we are approaching the deadline for Cannes Lions, the young Cannes Lions submissions, and thought it would be a great opportunity to talk to you not only about that, but also just in general, a catch up on Cannes from last year. We haven't had a chance to really unpack that together. I wanted to get a sense of, you have now been on your tour for the year, talking about what you saw last year and what kinds of trends emerged. And you always give such great presentations. So let's talk a little bit about, from the trends that you saw, have they carried across this year? Which ones do you think stuck, and which ones do you think influenced the most of the conversation and the outputs this year?
Those are great questions. It's funny. There's some big themes that establish themselves back on the other side of the ocean, and I think a number of them are indeed sort of framing or putting the structure to some of the work we're seeing this year. I think certainly coming out of the gate, AI was really very ascendant in the work I saw last year that was shortlisted and winning awards. It was interesting and fascinating uses of AI that I'd never seen before. There's and if anything, since Chat GPT, appeared on the horizon, it has just fueled it exponentially. So I'm very excited about what I think we're going to see this year at Cannes. Using AI in unexpected ways. I mean, there was that one campaign that was for Cadbury last year, and it was the one where they used this the most famous movie star in the world. He's an Indian famous star, an Indian movie star. And what they did is they used deep fake and used AI to mimic him and his features and physically his face. And it allowed a series of mom and pop stores, the really small stores that were really buckling under, the loss of income from COVID. It allowed them to do customized ad campaigns for themselves. So that was such an interesting use of AI to make a message very personal. So I think we're just going to see even more of that this year, which I think is very exciting. I think yeah, it was very cool. Hacking into norms, like turning something completely on its ear. I saw some wonderful examples of not hackvertising, but hackfatism. So activism meets hacking. And I think one of my favorite ones from last year was a brand called Black Market that what they did is they talked to people who are in the midst of buying an iPhone. Literally at the moment, the point of purchase, when they're in an Apple store with that iPhone in their hands, a message would come up on the screen saying, why don't you think about, instead of adding to more, why don't you think about going refurbished instead of buying more stuff that's only going to end up in landfill? So I thought it was incredible because it was hacking. It was for the right reason at exactly the right point in time at the point of purchase. So I saw that happening, thought it was exciting. I think we're going to see more of that in the year ahead. It's been such a year of, I think, of activism in every shape and form. I mean, you think about last year, Sonia, we were at the Palais, and they were, scaling remember they were scaling the walls of the front of the Palais, like they had the soldiers out there and everything, because activism is alive and well, and I think that's a really great thing. But the theme of that one was, of course, sustainability. I feel the pressure, and I think the Young Lions, you're going to see that in some of the work this year too. Is everybody's concerned about sustainability and the state of the planet, the state of our climate change. And in fact, Ryan Reynolds, I think, captured the vibe I felt, and I wonder if you did too last year, which was, it was like everyone was carrying around a bag of rocks. There were heavy themes last year, and some of those things haven't lifted. Sustainability and climate change, continues to be a huge issue. The wars in Ukraine, there's now inflation is sort of nipping at everyone's heels. So I think those are themes I expect to see very much extend into this year. And I do think inclusivity is, on steroids. You saw so much work last year that really redefined inclusivity. I think we've looked at it as inclusive of gender, inclusive sexual orientation, inclusive of race. Well, I think what we're seeing now, I saw, was this inclusivity of ableism, like people who faced challenges, whether it was low because they were blind or had low sight, low vision, or hearing, or they had the challenges that they faced because of Down syndrome. There was a lot of work that was about including those people. So I like that there's this wider definition of inclusivity happening and evolving. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, so that's nice.
Yeah, I think those are some of the key themes that I saw last year. And they have different sets of words, whether it's circularity or upcycling or whatever. But I think I expect to see that this year. And if anything, greater and stronger ideas in sort of following those themes.
It's amazing how much taxonomy comes out of the advertising industry, and how much it helps to normalize terms and to popularize them. So like neurodiversity is something that I've started to hear a lot more of. When you think about inclusion and diversity, those types of themes, I think you're right. I think that there's just a real effort now being made to actually create the outputs, as opposed to just standing on a podium and talking about it. I found that also very refreshing to see.
Yeah, you're right. It's like walking the talk. And I do think that, it's said that advertising mirrors culture and society. I don't think so. I actually think we do a very big job of helping to define it, helping to push it forward. And I think the work that I see at Cannes indicates that, because, it's not just an ad show. It's really a snapshot of, culture from around the world. I call advertising sort of like the canary in the cultural coal mine. It kind of tells us what really matters to us as a society.
Yeah. How much do you think of it, when you look back at 2020 and 2021, things got a little bit heavy, obviously, for obvious reasons, COVID-19, George Floyd, like so many things were happening. And I feel like that was a real turning point for the industry, and in regards to reading the room.
Yes.
Right? Like just reading the culture room a little bit more carefully. Do you think that that's something that we're going to see in June coming up? Like, do you think that there will be more sort of finger on the pulse of the way the world is moving, as opposed to the products just sort of trying to be clever, witty, and like, how much do you think that messages will get tempered to read the room?
I think there's going to be a duality at play. I think, when we were in the heartland of COVID, it was all about brand resilience, and we all know, great moving piano music, and we're all in together, the great sense of community. I think a couple of things I've seen carry forward. I've seen the sense of community continue to flourish. I've seen brands work together in ways that I had never seen before, like beer brands banded together to do things for, their community. But I also, in equal measure, see people go, I'm just tired of it now. I want to laugh again. And that was something that stood out for me last year. Was, first of all, you remember when we went to the Palais, nobody was wearing a mask. And that was June. Like COVID was running rampant here in Canada.
Yeah.
So, we were still wearing masks on planes and in large, public venues. But in Cannes, I took a picture of the Palais, which had, I think, probably 5,000 people in it. And I don't think there was one mask. I thought it was going to be the super spreader event of the year.
But I think it was.
I think it was, actually. It was. I know so many people had it, including my husband. But I think that there's a lot of, I'm tired of it. I just want life to be normal again. And I want to laugh. I want to laugh with unfettered joy again. So I think you're going to see a little bit of both.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, I look forward to that. That's for sure. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, it's all the rage. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's writing briefs with it. Everybody's writing copy with it. Chat GPT, you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about, one of the moving trends was AI. Yeah. What are you seeing, or what are you hearing on the ground in terms of, how this might shake up the way the ad industry is going to approach creative?
It's funny because I see this interesting combination of people being terrified and fascinated in equal measure. I think it's, human nature to go to the darkest place first. This is it. Our jobs are over. They're goodbye, art directors and writers. We'll never write again. And who will be writing my campaigns? All those good things. Who will be doing the next Just Do It? It will be, Chat GPT. I think that we're all nosing around with it and playing with it to try and figure out the role that it will play in our lives. And it's, it's early days. It's just like the Wild West. But I think that our instant default is to go, oh, it's all over. This is the end of our journey. But I think that once we all start playing with it, I think it will find its sort of rightful place in kind of, that's really helpful to have it there to help with this. Well, I was talking to someone over, I think it was at FCB, and they were dabbling with it. And they said, we're just playing with it to see if it can write social ads. Like, can it do social posts for stuff that's completely straightforward? Yeah. So I wonder if that's where we'll land, is in the stuff that is very workmanlike. It's like the carnations. Carnations are the flower that just do the job. They're a flower, but they're not a grape. They're just there. I think that you may find that Chat GPT ends up performing the role where there's sort of the workmanlike tasks, perhaps. But, the thing is, it's still not got, insight, human intuition, feeling, emotion. I mean, so much of what we see, the award-winning work is really augured in emotion. Like, ROE, return on emotion, is the ROI. Like, you got to feel something. You got to evoke emotion in order to make a connection as a brand. And I think that, it's got a ways to go before we're going to see that. So I think maybe the fear is misplaced. Some healthy respect is probably the space it will occupy for us for a little while. But again, I'm sure we're going to go into Cannes and see, just like we did. Remember, we saw the rush of ads that were, this ad was written by AI. We told AI to write this and see what happened. I think you're going to see a lot of that at Cannes this year.
Right.
Some will be great, some will be horrible. But I mean, I'm sure that'll be a trend unto itself this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I had some great conversations with our friends at No Fixed Address, and we're talking about the idea of A/B testing. Here's ChatGPT versus the human version of it. And I think that we're going to see some really interesting case studies emerge. And most of the creative community that I've spoken with have said that, it's a great starting point, and it's actually maybe a great time saver, right? So it can only serve to create almost like a baseline, on which we can build and make better. So, I think that there's a lot of optimism, but it's really interesting to hear your take on the fact that, we'll probably see this at Cannes. I think you're right. I hope that none of the submissions that we're going to see are written by ChatGPT. I wonder if we'll be able to detect it. But on that subject, so the deadline for the Young Lions is approaching, and I was hoping to get your take on maybe some advice. If you're thinking about submitting, what kind of advice would you give to a young lion as they hit send on their submission?
Well, you know how it works. It's that 24-hour circuit that they've got, 48 hours, depending on which category you're submitting into. But what happens is Saturday morning, you're given the brief, and you've got 24 hours, to turn around an ad, whether it's a marketing plan, a print ad, a digital campaign, or the film team gets 48 hours. The media team also gets 24 hours. So you're handed this task and you've got to come up with a solution. And I think that there's it's a very big challenge, because I think it's easy to get knitted up and fall in love with their first idea. I think a lot of teams do that, and they don't kind of use that first few hours to kind of research deeply and quickly, and then kind of just going in as many different directions as they can with their thinking. I find that they kind of, you can get hung up on one idea and just sort of keep refining it instead. And I think if it's your first idea, it's going to be everybody else's first idea too. So it's kind of one of those things where you have to be prepared to throw the baby out with the bathwater a lot of the times. Probably entirely the wrong expression. That was never my strong suit. Don't throw out the baby, please.
Super tactful, as always.
Yes, yeah. But the other thing I'm finding that the teams really need to be mindful of, is to answer the objective. I mean, if it's off strategy, it doesn't matter. You'll be tossed out. Your jury members are very seasoned professionals who, first of all, have seen every ad in the world. So if it looks anything like anything that's already out there, you're out. But also, if it's off strategy, you're out. And to make sure you answer the objectives and be clear that you are, because I know it sounds motherhood that I'm saying this, but I cannot tell you, as someone who's been a jury member for the Young Lions many, many times and trains them too, how many times that people aren't on strategy or don't tie the loop up on the bow. So it's kind of pushing yourself really hard to be in an area that almost scares you because you've never seen anything like it. Then you're in the right area. Because if you it feels like this is slightly familiar but incredibly clever, every member of the jury will have already seen it too, and it'll be out. So it's a really challenging time, because I think the biggest thing that the kids have to do, or young lions have to do, is figure out how to parse out that 24 hours or 48 hours. How much time do I spend doing my research? How much time do I spend on that insight? How much time do I spend, working different versions of that insight? How much time do I spend my actual submission? Because it's, you got to have a great idea for sure. You got to have that insight, but it also has to be beautifully executed, because you're going to be up against the best in the world. I mean, you and I've seen the kind of work that gets submitted. It's remarkable. So it really is, you got to be on your A game every single part of the equation. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this year. It's always very interesting.
So, is it like sewing? Measure 3 times and then cut once, how would you weight it, like the amount of time on the research end, right?
The research gives you the insight, right? So
sure.
I think you have to know the playing field. What are the competitors doing, so that you know where not to go. So I think that's something you can do deeply and quickly. I mean, we're also conversant in, going online and kind of noodling around and finding out what the competitive set is doing. The biggest thing I think to spend your time in is the insight, to look deeply at what is really going to motivate someone to act, do, or think differently. That's the hardest part of our job right there. That is they call it the stone in the middle of the snowball. It's what finds the mark, is that insight. And then, I think that's job one. And then really spending the time to craft the hell out of whatever your concept is, whether it's a marketing plan, a media plan, or it's creative. It's, I've seen great ideas die on the vine because they were executed poorly. It just has to be the perfect trifecta. And it's
so really much pressure.
Yeah, it is so much pressure. And I think most of the world gets 2/3 of it right. And it's the really stellar young lions that fire on all 3 cylinders.
So let's say, if it's, you mentioned thrown out, right? So is there a feedback loop for the line? Like, do they get, any sort of feedback as to why they were thrown out, or is it just the winners emerge,
Well,
and that's
yeah,
it. Yeah.
it's nobody gets thrown out. It's just you're graded. I know I realize that sounded terribly harsh. No, there isn't feedback.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't. It's just, but everyone can see what's won. So I think that's kind of a pretty big reveal in terms of why something won. You can look at it and see yourself. You can see the insight. You can see the level of execution. You can see the idea. But no, feedback is not given. There's a lot of submissions every year. It's growing, which is so incredible to see. I'm so happy because I think it's the opportunity of a lifetime for a young advertising professional to be able to compete on the world stage. I mean, that is a career defining opportunity for anybody.
Absolutely. And I would also think that this is such a wonderful opportunity for the judges. I mean, what an honor, right? To be exposed to this like fire hose of, fresh thinking, young creative, right? And an opportunity to just review so much good stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think what it does is it replenishes your love and passion for the business. You go, yep, this is why we're in it. And this is why when some of the days are really hard, like today, you kind of go, I love this business so much because look what we create. You create something out of nothing. It's a remarkable thing.
Well, Karen, I'm gonna let you go, but I really appreciate talking to you about this. I know the deadline is, I think, on February 17th. Mm-hmm. And I so look forward to hearing your thoughts about the 2023 Cannes in June. And also I really look forward to seeing all the great work from the Young Lions that emerges in this year. And thank you so much for spending the time.
I am happy to. Looking forward to this year's crop as well. Thanks for having me on.